What's up, U.S. history? All right, today we're starting a project. It'll be due on Thursday by midnight. So you basically are going to have like 3 school days to work on it: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This will take up most of my allotted class time for the next 3 days. So I'm supposed to basically book up and take, on average, 30 to 45 minutes of your time per day. The one exception, the other thing that I'll have you do is Wednesday. So tomorrow is the state count day, and it's really important that we make contact with you just for like school funding purposes and whatnot to make sure you're out there and you get counted on the Michigan Center like rosters, so the district gets funding through the state. So tomorrow, I'm also gonna start wrapping up. We'll probably have 2 more parts to the Teddy Roosevelt like biography series, and I want to finish it up this week. If you watched my video from yesterday, like the weekly rundown one, Wednesday I'll do part 4 of that biography series, where we'll really kind of cover what Teddy Roosevelt did as president, and a lot of that'll be like the most significant things that he impacted in American society in the era we're talking about. There will be a question and response, like a discussion thread tomorrow that it's very important that you participate on. I'll probably make that one worth double points, but I'm going to score it essentially the same way I always do, where you need to make a good comment on it. So I'll explain that a little bit more tomorrow, but just make sure you check in Wednesday, even though I primarily want you using these next 3 days as work time. Wednesday, there will be some notes, and you definitely need to check in on that discussion thread and make a comment. Okay, for the project, here's what you're doing. Now, I think I set it up correctly where everybody will just automatically get a copy of my slideshow. I'm giving you the basic form, kind of the format, the rundown, like the skeleton of it. And then you're going to go in and delete things and add your own work to it. The first slide, let me minimize my face a little bit here. It just says the 10 Image Project, and it has the year, the kind of time frame of American history we're talking about, 1890 to 1920. And I'm going to want you to have 5 domestic policy images. That's the stuff that would have been like covered in the progressive era notes, the things that are happening internally in the country. So domestic policy is home front of America, things happening inside the country. Then you're also going to have 5 slides that would tie into foreign policy. That's things that like how America is interacting with the rest of the world, stuff that would be on like the Spanish-American War, annexing Hawaii, things like that, the Monroe Doctrine. Sorry, bell's going. I don't know why they haven't turned those off. Anyway, so the 10 Image Project, the first slide, the cover slide, you'll just leave this one essentially like that. The one thing that I want you to change is you go through and you're going to put your name here. Okay, so don't leave your name here. You put your name right in that spot. Hopefully that's self-explanatory. Now you get into like the first slide. My first 5 slides for you look identical. I just copied them. The only thing I changed on each one was where it says slide the number at the beginning. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. But other than that, the text in there, the filler and the image is all just like copy and paste. They're just duplicate slides. You'll go in. So we'll just use slide 3 here, for example. I have a picture of some kids working in a factory. I don't know how old they are, but they look like they're pretty young, maybe 10, 11 years old would be my ballpark guess. This was the era where like a lot of photographs were taken of kids going into factories or going into coal mines, doing these hard, like adult, intense labor type jobs. And the first child labor laws started getting passed around the country. So like you definitely could use child labor as a topic for a domestic policy issue. We talked about that. You should have tracked down some notes on it. It was on one of my quizzes. The one thing that I'll say is though, don't use my image. There's 10,000 images out there. I don't know how many, but there's a lot of images of kids working in factories and stuff. I want you to have all of your images be unique to you. So keep that in mind too, that like if I look through these and I'm going to read your, the text you put in there and look at all of your images really quick when I'm giving you a grade. Don't give one of your buddies all of your best images. If I see, now if you use the same one image, the same as somebody else, no biggie, but there's like literally probably millions of images from the progressive era. If you and another person turn in a slideshow that's got 5, 6, 7, 8 of the same images and your captions look the same, that's going to be fishy, and somebody's cheating and not doing the work. So make sure you don't do that. This is something that is an individual project, and it really shouldn't be all that hard. Like, what I want you to do is pick something from the progressive era and find an image that ties into it. In this case, I chose a photograph. It doesn't have to be a photograph, though. I figure most of you are going to pick photographs for most of these slides, but it could be a map. It could be a painting. It could be a political cartoon, a portrait. I don't know. The possibilities are endless. It's just I'm looking for an image from this era in American history. So like if you say you find a good photo that you really want to use and it's Martin Luther King protesting, marching in the streets, going through Selma, all right? That's a cool image, and it definitely ties into American history, but the Selma protest happened in 1965. That's an era that we're going to cover way down the road. It has to be something from 1890 to 1920. Now, if you find an image that you really like, and you can use different search criteria to track those down, but I imagine most of you are going to use Google Images to track most of these down. If you find a really cool image that you want to dig into a little bit and use on your slideshow, but you're not 100% sure if it is from this era, I'm pretty good at spotting that kind of stuff. You might want to just email it to me real quick and just ask me real quick, Taluki, does this image work? Yes or no? And I'll give you feedback and try to respond as quick as I can. Generally, if you're sending me an email like that during the school day, I usually am responding to people within a few minutes. Now, if you respond to me at like 8 at night or ask me that question, don't expect to get a response until the next morning when school starts up. I don't want all 5 of your domestic policy images to be all about child labor. If you use 1, great. Maybe 2, maybe. But I really want you to hit a variety of topics. If you're struggling to think like what domestic policy things happened during this era, well, I would reference you back to my notes. If you go back to some of those video lectures that I have done over the past month that were progressive era related, or where you had to track down some stuff, go back to that quiz and all the information that you used for it. You'll find a lot of information. I also gave you it was an attachment to one of my assignments that was all the different significant laws and amendments that were passed during this era. That was the day that I talked about Upton Sinclair in his book, The Jungle, where he was going in and investigating the meat packing plants. That would be something you could use because that book came out and it grossed everybody out that like, oh my God, fingers are getting cut off and rat turds are getting ground up into hamburger and that's getting sold to the American public. And then that directly led to a law getting passed where like government inspectors could go in and inspect these meat processing and food processing plants. So using like the image of the book, The Jungle, or something from a meat packing plant from the era, that would be a good thing. And if you look at that, the day I did The Jungle, there was a list of a bunch of laws. Go in there and check out some of that stuff. That would give you a lot of key terms and things that would definitely fit into this project where it would give you some ideas for images to go track down. All right. Think of trusts and monopolies. I'm trying to think of some of the other vocab words that I'd use, but you really have a lot of different options there. And if you're struggling to come up with topics, for goodness sakes, shoot me an email and tell me you're struggling, and I'll give you some ideas and try to help you out with it. All right, moving on a little bit. Now, the second set of 5 slides that I have here are all the foreign policy ones. Essentially, they look the same. You have text there and then an image over on the right side. For this one, I chose a political cartoon, and it's Teddy Roosevelt going around with a big stick in his hand, a club, and then you can see it's the Caribbean Sea there in the background, and that's like, it was a political cartoon talking about Teddy Roosevelt's big stick diplomacy that he practiced as president. Now, I'll get into that more tomorrow when I do the Teddy Roosevelt lecture, because we're talking about his presidency and his foreign policy will definitely come up. So if you want an explanation on that, wait until tomorrow. But, there's I don't want you to use like a photo of Teddy Roosevelt or even a political cartoon for all 5 of these images. And Roosevelt could tie into domestic policy stuff or foreign policy stuff because he was president and he was, interacting in both of those realms of American policy. So you find something that would tie into like the Rough Riders or the Spanish-American War, annexing Hawaii. We haven't covered World War I yet, but World War I is 1914 to 1918 and America gets involved. You could kind of skip ahead a little bit and do some images from the war. It's really, possibilities are endless. So you find things that would apply to American foreign policy from 1890 to 1920. Throw in some of those images. Now, you might find a great image of a soldier out fighting. And this soldier has taken some German prisoners hostage, and they're all wearing swastikas, all right? And they have golden eagles on them and stuff, and the American guy has a rounded helmet. Well, cool image maybe, but that's from World War II. And you can definitely tell World War I, World War II apart. So make sure your image, again, is from this era. That's one thing I'll mark people down for is if they maybe pick a good photo, but it's not from the time period we're talking about. Last thing I really want to talk to you about is the text there. I give you some explanation in each one. Now, you don't have to use as many bullet points as I put on there. That's me giving you some explanation. When you get into any one of these slides, you're just going to delete all my text right out of it. And essentially, in the text part of each one where you're captioning the photo, I don't want you to go copy and paste some text from Wikipedia. I usually can spot that pretty darn good. If it sounds like, or if you get it from some website, if it sounds like a college professor wrote this and not a high school freshman, I'm going to look into it for plagiarism. I'm going to copy and paste your text, put it into a website. And if I find that verbatim, word for word somewhere else, well, you're going to end up taking a 0 probably on this project. I want you to put it in your own words. Now, you can use Wikipedia, or you could use some university website about Teddy Roosevelt or foreign policy from the era. That's totally fine. Use any resource you can find out there that seems to be credible on the internet. But I want you to sum it up and put it in your own words. Basically what I'm looking for, and you can give me as much detail as you want, but I don't really want you to go more than that text box worth of space. So if you're starting to get more than about 50 or 60 words in that text box, you're probably getting a little bit too verbose and wordy. I'm looking for a couple, 2 or 3 quick bullet points that say what's happening in the image. Why did you choose this image? And then what do you find that's interesting about it? How is this a significant thing going on in this era of American history? And those questions, why did you pick it? What's going on in it? Those basic things, that's what I want for the domestic policy ones and the foreign policy ones. Hopefully that makes sense to you. I believe I have it set up so that you'll automatically just get a copy of my slideshow when you go into the assignment. Remember, it's due by Thursday at midnight. Friday, I'm going to start checking those grades in, and I'll probably get them wrapped up over the weekend. If you have any issues with that, I don't think you'll be able to edit my show, but if it makes you a copy, you should be able to edit that one. For some reason, if it just gives you a copy of my slideshow, well, then you go make a copy of it first and retitle it out and name it with your name, and you start editing it and get it submitted by Thursday. All right. Hopefully that all makes sense to you. If not, hit me up for further explanation. I'm happy to help. And again, if you send me an email anytime through the school day, I usually get back with you pretty darn quick. So, yeah. Let me know. Keep me posted. Have a little bit of fun with this assignment. You can go a lot of different directions, and hopefully you learn a little something about this era in history.